This is our 2316 project. I am Justin Shu.
I'm Nathaniel Clough, and we're going to present this on the quality of childcare in Washington, USA. So to start, I'm going to go with topic summary. We investigated the influence of infant and pre-K childcare supply and demand on the number of suicide, drug, or traffic-related deaths in the state of Washington. And we did this because we wanted to have a mental health related project, and these causes of death are known to be related to mental health issues, and the infant and pre-K environment, which is primarily curated by childcare, is known to have long-term mental health impacts. So the purpose of this project is to discover more about how childcare can impact individuals later in life. And so we wanted to take data from the infant and pre-K years and compare it to data that comes on unfortunately much later in life when people are experiencing early premature deaths. And our initial hypothesis is that when demand for childcare is poorly met and the number of Social Security recipients is high compared to an average within a state or country, the number of suicide, drug, or traffic related deaths are going to be higher. So, for our data collection phase, we knew we wanted to have a health related project, and we know that data analysis in these types of projects work best with population analytics. And the problem is that patient confidentiality makes publicly available data sets with pure health statistics difficult. So we knew that we would have to go onto data.gov and the CDC, but within that, we would be more interested in mental health data sets, and we would also have to draw our own conclusions.
All right, so for the data cleaning, what we did is we first, for the downloaded data set, the CSV, what we did is we made a pandas data frame and we replaced all of the missing values with n/a. And then so for our web collection requirement, what we did was we web scraped data from a larger website which had all of the data from all states in the US, and we accessed the links inside all of those states, and we found the total SSI recipients for each state. And then for our web collection requirement number 2, which is our JSON file, what we did is that we basically used loops to parse through our JSON file and indexing to collect the zip codes and poverty levels into the format of the dictionary that we wanted. So for our inconsistencies, what we had is, for our inconsistency 1 for the CSV, what we did is we just replaced the empty values with n/a. And then so for our inconsistency 2, what we did is we changed the categorization of the poverty level from all to the average poverty level in Washington to match other descriptions of poverty levels. And then for our inconsistency number 3, what we did is we removed commas from the total numbers after web scraping was completed. And so for our data analysis, these are our insights. So for our first insight, what we did is we compared the average of estimated percentage of total childcare need met for families in the 200 plus federal poverty income level and the less than 200% federal poverty income level. And basically what we were trying to find is we were just trying to find which income level has their childcare needs met the best. And what we found is that the 200 and below federal poverty level has their needs met better than the 200 and up poverty level. And so for our insight 2, what we found is basically what we were trying to find is that certain zip codes in our data set had missing values for the child care demand, or had missing reporting values for the child care. And so what we wanted to find is which zip codes had those missing values, because those missing childcare reporting values kind of indicate that in that area, childcare is less strong and the infrastructure for childcare is lacking. So we just found these zip codes for all lacking childcare areas in Washington. And so for our insight 3, what we did is we basically tried to find, so which cause of death has the lowest reliability in its data. And so how we found that is I did a filtering of the original data frame with all of our deaths, all of the deaths of drug OD, suicide, and transportation related deaths, and we found the standard deviations for all of those causes of death. And then what we found was that the drug OD deaths, the standard deviation was way higher than the other two, suggesting that the drug OD has the highest standard deviation and therefore the lowest reliability in its data. And so for our Insight 4, what we did is that we basically just found the sums of all deaths per year in Washington. And so doing this, we found that in the year of 2020 and onward into 2021, the deaths kind of spiked a bit. And so what this kind of can have us conclude is that perhaps COVID-19 exacerbated transportation-related deaths, drug OD deaths, and the final one was suicide deaths.
Most likely due to increased mental health issues during COVID.
Yeah. So for our Insight 5, what we did is we just we found the average number of SSI recipients under 18 in Washington, across all states. We found the average number of SSI recipients, and then we found the Washington total of SSI recipients under 18. And basically, we found that the Washington total was a lot less than the average for the number of SSI recipients under 18. And what this has us conclude is that Washington is a more economically stable state and has a stronger infrastructure in healthcare and childcare to be able to accommodate for under 18 SSI recipients better.
So for our first data visualization, we created a heat map of the percent estimated demand met across the state of Washington. And we used the Clough Plotly Express figure, and we had to extract a GeoJSON file and add that into the Clough, which was a difficult coding to complete. And also we found that this GeoJSON file doesn't contain every single county in the state of Washington, so that was slightly disappointing. However, we see a trend that the darker counties are more rural, which would indicate that rural counties have a harder time with childcare, which absolutely makes sense.
And so for our next visualization, what we did is that we basically just found from one of our insights, we found the number of deaths for each year in Washington. And so we just did a bar graph that basically just showed, okay, so which year had the most number of deaths, and then we can see that 2020 and 2021 had the most deaths. And we used this, I did this with Plotly using the px.bar graph function. So for our final visualization 3, what we did is we basically compared the SSI recipient totals as our x variable, and our drug overdose death totals as our y variable. And basically what we're trying to do is find a correlation between the number of SSI recipients and the drug overdose numbers. And there was actually a positive correlation between the two.
So here is our one pager, which kind of wraps up some of the things that we have just been talking about. And for our conclusion, to revisit our hypothesis, we did not find enough data conclusive enough to support the initial hypothesis. We saw some supporting evidence, like that moderately strong regression line of Social Security and deaths, but because a lot of this supporting evidence may have been flawed due to population size. Washington is a smaller state, so some of these correlations that we saw between number of deaths and number of Social Security recipients compared to other states could be because Washington has a smaller population. Some challenges that we encountered were that during the data cleaning, there were a couple inconsistencies that we weren't exactly expecting, and as well during the data analysis, especially during our creation of the heat map, adding in the GeoJSON file and the feature ID key attribute took time and a lot of digging through the documentation of Plotly Express to figure that part out. What we could have done better, a lot of population analytics has to do with the size of the population in Washington, so we should have accounted for this, but we do feel like a lot of our visualizations were comprehensive.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.